Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. I'm Catherine Tindall, one of the tax partners here at Dominion, a specialty tax and accounting firm for wealth advisory practices. But on today's episode, I have a very special guest, Christine Simone. She's from Muth Health. She's a partner over there. We recently had another member of the team on the show talking about health planning and benefits and Medicare and that sort of thing. But I wanted to bring Christine back on the show for us to be able to discuss kind of at a higher level some of the things that I notice in planning with firms, and also just what you as advisors should be thinking about when it comes to planning health insurance and health costs when doing financial plans for clients. So thanks for coming on the show today, Christine. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and dive right in.
So I know we were talking in the pre-show a little bit about how I have a lot of experience working with firm owners themselves for their own tax planning. And one of the almost like within the first couple of conversations, the question comes up of how are you doing your health insurance? Like, how are you doing this administratively? Like, what's the coverages? Like, how is it working? Is it good? Is it bad? Are you deducting it? Like this, that, and the other, right? And very often I find in those conversations, the advisor, it's kind of a blank spot on the map for them, for themselves. And so, I think for a lot of these firms, and then to the way that I've seen the industry starting to change, where consumer expectations are they want something more holistic, like they're not looking for, tell me what stocks to pick. They're looking for somebody to really offboard a lot of the administrative mental burden of everything that goes on into this administrative stuff. So I've been noticing that a lot on the practice side. What have you been seeing, like in terms of how advisors and practices have been doing this historically, what you've seen successful practices doing, and, just a little bit about kind of what you guys do related to this area?
Yeah, well, there's two sides to that question. You're highlighting a common reason why people reach out to us, which is that they might be a small business owner or just a business owner generally and need help establishing coverage for themselves and potentially for their employees. That is true whether you're a financial advisor or whether you're a client of a wealth manager and need assistance with that coverage. So oftentimes the conversation starts with the advisor themselves. They're maybe starting their own practice, or they're a few years in, or they signed up for a group plan and they're realizing how darn expensive it is. It's one of the most expensive things that they probably pay for their business. And so they're wondering, like, are there other options out there? We help advisors as well as their clients explore those other options out there. A lot of the times we just assume you need group coverage if you're a business. That being said, we see very competitive rates on the individual marketplace and a lot of great benefits that you could offer to your employees as well, by giving them the ability to enroll in a plan that offers them more choice and more personalization through the marketplace. So we can do that directly with an advisory firm themselves, helping them compare a group like traditional business plan to the individual market, but we can also do that with their clients. That's our whole offering to the wealth management industry, is being able to support clients, whether they're small business owners, they're retired, or they need Medicare assistance, evaluate their options and enroll in coverage that is tailored to their specific needs.
Yeah, that's great, because I see it oftentimes at the practice level. It's a really complex issue, especially depending on like how closely held the practice is, and then do they have employees, and do the employees need benefits? And then also just how much administrative burden can the practice sustain? So sometimes we even look at things like, okay, if you've only got a couple of employees and they are going to need health insurance, like looking at options like PEOs even, because sometimes they can get a better coverage. But I think a lot of the times it's just one of those things where, the comment I usually get from advisors like, oh, we would love to be able to offer this, or like, we would love to be able to do this. It's just been too expensive historically. But I think maybe zooming down on, the technical advisory role and the relationship with the clients, if you could speak to a little bit of what you've experienced with them using this component of their clients' life, of how they can be adding more value by focusing on, a more holistic approach with including like the health planning as part of what they're doing on the financial planning side.
Well, think about the impact. If you have a client who's wanting to start a business, maybe they dreamed their whole life of starting a business, or maybe they're selling their business that they've just spent 30, 40 years building. And one of the things that they have questions around is their health insurance. It could be one of the things that's keeping them from selling their business because they're not yet 65, or they're afraid to lose their traditional employer-based coverage if they wanted to start their first company. Think of the impact that you as an advisor could have if you were able to help the client lay out their options, understand, the costs associated with moving through with that decision, and helping them eventually with a partner like ours or others enroll in that coverage and establish that coverage. Like, our goal is to help clients feel confident and clear in their coverage options. And a lot of the times we are restricted. We've seen clients be restricted or afraid to move forward through those big milestones in their life because of health insurance. So we're trying to really unlock the abilities that clients have, make sure they understand the costs associated with their coverage. And the advisor plays such a key role in that decision because it is one of the top things that they will spend money on, like guaranteed, especially in retirement. It's one of the top 3 expenses. As we already spoken about, as a business owner, it's one of the top expenses. So there is so much impact to the financial plan overall. To ignore this area is going to result in a huge gap in your overall insight and knowledge of where your clients are spending money.
Yeah. And I think for advisors who are interested in starting to implement this, if you start with yourself first, that's a really good starting point, right? And then you get the experience of like, how did I like doing this planning kind of related just to my own situation? And then what would it look like for me to implement this in my practice? And then I think, another key point that's worth mentioning, if you can highlight this, is sometimes I will see advisors add things into their technical offerings that create a lot of operational drag. Unless it's like a really fully thought out, okay, this is a real need case. Like, we really do need to keep this in-house, or we really do need to offer this. Like, most often where I encounter it is that like people will do the wealth management and then they'll offer to do the tax work as well for clients. Yeah. And it can create a ton of operational drag because it's just a very different process compared to the wealth management. But it can be executed really well. It's one of those things where it's hard to dabble in it and do well with it.
Right.
So when it comes to like the health planning and practical implications of, okay, if you look at a practice right now, not doing any of this for clients, just kind of saying like, make sure you sign up for Medicare and, good luck, like do your best with it. What do you see as like baby steps for them to actually start exploring doing this, or just like the general process involved with implementing this into a practice?
Yeah. So we are very much of the thinking of like, advisors do not need to become health insurance experts. There is just too much to know.
Yeah.
And there's so much nuance depending on so many different factors, the type of coverage, where the client lives, and so many other things, that we are actually not advocating for advisors becoming insurance experts. What we rely on them for, and the impact that they can have, and to answer your question directly, is we need them to identify the opportunities though. Mm-hmm. So if advisors could do anything, it is really just creating a list in your CRM of all your clients turning 65 in the next 6 months. It's that easy. It takes 30 seconds to maybe pull that list up in your CRM. Anytime you're having a retirement related conversation with clients, add to your checklist health insurance as one thing you need to make sure is addressed in that meeting. And we're not suggesting that the advisor is collecting the client's doctors and medications and doing all the research and calling all the carriers and seeing if their doctors are in network. Absolutely not. We're recommending partnering with someone that you trust, that has the scalability and the security and the client experience that you would deliver at your firm, and that will help handhold your client all the way through to enrollment in a process where you as an advisor at least have the oversight to have impact on any income that might impact the premiums that the client might receive, whether that's IRMA for Medicare or premium tax credits for the marketplace. Mm-hmm. And then also the outcome of which plan was selected and updating your financial plan to ensure that those premiums and out-of-pocket costs are reflected in the financial plan. So to not be, overly promotional, we've built our workflow around the advisor so that they can participate as they wish throughout the process. But most importantly, they can log into the platform and they can see the client's premiums post-enrollment and update their financial plan with ease. They don't have to be emailing the insurance agent or asking the client what plan they picked or anything like that. It's all fed to the client, the advisor, through the platform.
Yeah, that's great, because I think, I always like to think of things at the level of like, okay, what's the best customer experience outcome that you have? But then you have to combine that with how are you going to build the back end system structural support so that it's a very clean process for them and a clean process for your team to execute it, where it's, it's very tight. And then when it comes to not that most advisors are overly obsessive about this, but as an accountant, I'd be remiss not to bring it up, is just making sure that the unit economics are working, of like when you're doing the advising, that you're not having to spend a ton of extra time. The more that you can do things that are extra value add that do not cost you time, and then it creates a better experience for the client, like that's the win, right? And trying to do that as streamlined as possible. So that's great. You guys have a portal that they can just pull that information back out of, and the client, because I think the thing that really frustrates, I experience this with the firm owners, like having to do all the back and forth between the different elements of their life. Like they just don't want to administratively have to deal with this stuff to begin with. And the more these components can just be synchronized in the background, like between the wealth management and health planning and tax planning, like it just makes their experience so much better. And it's so much easier for us to operate practices like that. So in terms of like things that you've seen as stumbling blocks for advisors, or like common objections to not doing this, what are the common things that you've run into of like why advisors would, not want to do, not want to implement something like this? Just a slight interruption in this conversation. I wanted to bring to your attention two things that are important for you to know. So we're always at the mercy of social media algorithms. So if you can subscribe to the show, that would mean a lot to me. Even more to me if you can leave a rating and let me know what you think about it. But we have a new newsletter that's coming out. It's going to be very active in 2025. That is specifically around tax issues that I'm seeing advisors face in their own practices, changes in legislations, and the pieces that I think are critically important for you to stay ahead of as an advisor with the new administration. So nearby, wherever you're interacting with this, will be the link of how to sign up for our newsletter. Also nearby will be the link to my LinkedIn, which is the best way to get in touch with me, learn more about what we're doing for advisors in the tax strategy and compliance work that we do, and also to get access to the various tools and interviews and things that I do, specifically designed to help you improve your practice, improve your own tax situation, etc. So let's get back to the episode, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, so I have kind of two points that are worth bringing up. The first is kind of what we just spoke about. Advisors are maybe afraid that they'll be relied on as the expert. It's not what we're advocating for at all. If anything, I think that if an advisor tries to offer advice in this area, it's probably too high level and could actually mislead the client in some way, shape, or form. So it's almost better to just identify the opportunity, start the conversation, and connect them with someone who is an expert that you have that oversight on, as we spoke about. I hear a lot from advisors that they're like, I don't know that I want to really get into these topic areas. They're thinking that they're going to be relied on for their clients telling them their health concerns and their health conditions and all these sorts of things that maybe they don't want to know. But frankly, if their clients did open up to them about that, think of how strong that relationship could get. Like if an advisor could actually just at a high level entertain or have a conversation with their client about them being concerned about getting diagnosed with something in retirement that their parents had or something like that. Like that is actually a great way to really strengthen a relationship with your client. And then you just have to have a really smooth handoff to someone that you trust that can carry that forward. So I think some advisors are a little bit afraid of that as healthcare generally as like a topic where they don't need to. That's definitely something that we can help them overcome with just some conversation primers and some ways to handle those conversations. But the second thing, we're in 2025. It's the era of AI. There's so many technologies. There's so many tools. There's so many like trinkets and exciting things that they can focus on. And I've heard, from advisors that they're so busy implementing some of these like deeper technologies into their practice that it's almost taking away from their ability to focus on the services that are being offered because they are so technically heavy. I've heard firms tell me they've got like an AI task force and things like that matter for efficiency and they matter for scale. But they don't matter as much as something like what we do for your client's experience, for the service level that you're delivering to them, and for building that strong relationship where your client is not going to leave you for someone else because they do this one thing that you don't do. Like AI is all behind the scenes, like your lead gen tools or your meeting note takers, like that's all stuff that's behind the scenes. Clients don't really care about that sort of stuff. They just want to know that you're taking care of them. And that you're considering that holistic financial plan. So those are definitely kind of two hills that we're kind of climbing up right now with advisors every day. But we help them overcome that and understand that this is something that's super important to the client.
Yeah, well, and especially on the health spending side, like it really does flow back to everything going on with them financially. Like I know just even as a tax professional, it's one of the questions that I have to recur every year because it's like, okay, well, are we going to be able to deduct this? Or, how is this going to be reflected? And then it too, even just on the relationship side, it's like, okay, well, if I know that they're spending a lot of money on health stuff and going through a health thing right now, am I going to pressure them for, these other things? Like it impacts your ability to deliver services well. If you're just like, oh yeah, no, I know that this, this family's dealing with somebody's got cancer right now, or I know that this family's dealing with, they just had a new baby right now, or whatever it is. And it just allows you to really have that deeper relationship when you know those things, but then also just really deliver much better advice in a lot of ways and structure the relationship correctly. So I think those are really great points. What are some wins that you've seen from firms that you guys have worked with in terms of like some of the outcomes that they feel like they've achieved through being able to like work with a partner like you? Like, do you have any like battle stories from that?
Well, battle stories is not where I thought you were going with that question. I mean, wins. We've got firms.
Yeah, victory stories.
we've got. I've got a lot of battle wounds, but some wins are definitely probably around just winning prospects. Like to be able to market and advertise and connect with the client in that prospecting phase where they're coming to you with a problem. No one wakes up in the morning and just randomly says, "I need an advisor." There's something that they've got a question. They've got a problem. They're wondering, do I have enough money? Or am I going to outlive my money? Like those are the sorts of things that they're wondering. So think about the impact that you can have with the client, where if you're meeting them for the first time and they're talking about retiring and they're probably interviewing like 2 or 3 other advisors at the same time. But one of the things that you bring up is different. It's specific. It's relevant to them. It's, hey, you're retiring. Can we help you with, your health insurance? This is going to make up one of the top 3 things you'll spend your money on in retirement. So we think it's really important to get a better idea of what insurance is going to cost you. Are you interested in me kind of running you through this process that we have where we can help you evaluate health plan options? That is a standout experience for a prospect, and it doesn't cost the advisor anything. Not time, not money, especially again with a partner like us. Like we're going to evaluate the plan options. We're going to put an analysis in front of the client and they can talk about it with their advisor. They can talk about it with us. And that is an extremely unique scenario that you just help that client address because everyone can do the money management. Everyone can do the financial planning. Different layers and levels of tax planning exist at firms, same with estate planning. But as buzzwords, those are probably utilized by everyone as well. But healthcare is so unique. So that is definitely probably the biggest wins are when we can generate meaningful revenue to an advisor by, having them have access to this offering.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm a big fan of we're delivering transformations, like that's really, as a service company, like that's really what's happening. It's like you have somebody that's in a set state, that they're in a set pain, that they're trying to either prevent a future pain or alleviate a current pain. And the more that you can just tailor the service offering to be at the transformation and get them to that desired outcome state. And if you can do that in a way where it doesn't take a ton of your touch time to do that, that's great. that they're happy, you're happy, you're not creating operational drag. So I really like, setups like that for things that work. So for advisors who are interested in getting, okay, they want to see what's going on, maybe check it out for themselves first, something like that. What's the best way for them to kind of get in your world, Christine? Like resources, or just where should they start?
There's a bunch of resources on our website, from case studies to guides to just plain educational resources. One thing about healthcare, it's so complicated that there is no shortage of information that you can read on Medicare, on the marketplace. It's in tax bills. It's in Congress. There's lots of stuff going on in Congress right now related to things like premium tax credits, to HSA contributions, to all sorts of stuff. So I mean, I could keep you busy with reading if you wanted to check out our website and either read educational materials or watch some of our webinars too. I think we've done a really great job of also showing how we pair really nicely with tools that advisors are probably using every day already in their practice as well, and how you can complement each other and bounce from one place to the next. So there's a lot of those resources on our website as well. If you're on the fence, I would recommend starting there, join maybe a live webinar we have coming up, just learn about how we work with advisors. It's pretty unique considering like the view on insurance, typically, right? Like we're not your typical insurance agent or agency. We have a completely different platform and way in which we work with advisors, which is super unique. So if you could dip your toes in through, one of those ways and just start to explore and open up and think about your book of business, you probably could think of a client that could benefit in the next few weeks.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So for those of you who are interested, we'll post the links to Move Health's website below for you to go check out those resources. And any other final thoughts, Christine, before we wrap up the show?
The only thing is just timing perspective. Like we're recording this in June, so you're really relying on clients to have some life event to engage them in a planning exercise around their healthcare costs. But also think of, if you're trying to build touch points into your practice, just like with tax planning, like you all do, the first quarter of the year and maybe like the end of the year really is when you're starting to plan for those taxes. Open enrollment happens every time in the fall for people on Medicare or on the marketplace. So if you're looking at ways to increase touch points with clients, to increase engagement and marketing opportunities with clients, if you're listening to this in June or maybe July or August, September, maybe you've got us right at the right point where you could still implement this during open enrollment. So consider that too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. Super fun.
For those of you listening, this was another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast.